Welcome. I'm Will, the Nerdy Nerf Herder. Thank you for joining me this evening. I hope everyone is having a wonderful evening. Tonight we will be resuming my museum build, and as promised, here we go. No more mountain! And I've got a camera set up, so that way we can see a long distance view. But first, I'd like to take a moment. There is a new event active for Pokopia. Unfortunately, it's going to show me all the event items all at once. But we've got the red crystal fragments, the red crystal cluster, which if you don't know how to get that, you can either take a picture of it and 3D print it, and it will go into your catalog as that. Or you can use Magnet Rise and pick it up. I plan on getting some of these to make some decorations for my volcano build. It is worthy to note that each one of these red crystal clusters takes one rare Pokemetal to print and produces 4 of the red crystal fragments. The lantern is an oil lantern, which is one of the items I needed for my volcano build. Takes 2 rare Pokemetal to print. So if you're looking at the event items and you're thinking, okay, I can just 3D print them later, if you have the rare Pokemetal to spare, you might want to print the crystals and then get all the items up front and then print any more crystals you need for decoration. That's how I intend on doing it. But you also get the tent kit, which is 10 crystals, I believe. Camping chair for 5, sleeping bag. We've got the treasure for 5, camp cooking pot. We've got the map and compass, adventure kit, the jewel wall decoration, and the digital camera. So those are the event items for this new event. The treasure and the backpack and the map together will equal the habitat for Sableye for those wanting to bring Sableye to their dream island. So right now, this is where we're going to pick back up. Here is the enclosure area that I am building. So we're going to start making more of these. So it is 3 blocks from here. So 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to delete some blocks here. So last time I mentioned that tonight would be going till midnight, and I wouldn't be going over that time any tonight. One of the things that is near and dear to my heart is Lego. Particularly Lego Star Wars, which one day I may show off my collection. Or at least part of it. And for LEGO Insiders tonight, it goes live for the May the 4th LEGO deals, as well as the pre-order bonus. So I'm hoping to get off here and jump in and get me some LEGO ordered from my birthday money from a while back that I've been waiting for. Every year, it's one of my favorite things to do is ask for birthday money and then save it for the May the 4th Star Wars Lego promotion, where I can get the gift with purchase. I have long regretted not getting one of my favorite video game characters from my teenage years, Revan, as a minifigure. So we know we're going to want this level here as our brick. And then we'll want to delete the row above it. And then we'll want to delete the row on the other side of it so I can put in the lamps. So we're gonna... And then we'll also want to make this middle one here. But I think it looks better when it's done like that. Let's get rid of some here. So the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic games for Xbox and for PC was one of my very first RPGs on Xbox. I would also end up picking up Fable at that time, as well as some of the other games that were coming out in those eras. I started getting into Final Fantasy in high school. Having not been a PlayStation kid, I was an N64 kid, which, I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, the Sony PlayStation was basically done by Sony in response to a failed contract between them and Nintendo for a disk drive system. But Nintendo decided they wanted to go a different path, and they opted to make the N64 instead. And Sony was like, hey, we've put all this work into this. We don't want it to be a total waste, so what if we did our own system? And gave it a disk drive, and that's kind of how the PlayStation ended up being a thing. And then you had Sega with the Sega Dreamcast in that era, and it was like the first real console wars. Of course, it's not the most infamous of console wars. I think the Xbox, PS2, GameCube era really started to define the market. You had Xbox with Halo as one of those things that if you wanted it, you went for that console. You had Fable end up being an option for them. Interesting. So we're going to end up right on the wall. So that will get a double light effect, maybe. We'll see here. We may have to adjust the spacing on this a little bit. For those of you turning in, thank you for joining me. We're going to keep on this museum build and talk about some of the gaming of my youth and whatever other topics happen to strike our fancy tonight. As we move into May, I always do like a good Star Wars conversation. Star Wars is one of my biggest fandoms besides Pokemon and Zelda. And of course, I like the Final Fantasy games, and as I said, it was high school when I started getting into them, having not had the PlayStation. My first PlayStation console was the PlayStation 2. And I ended up getting Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 8 and 9 and 10 for that. Yeah, I was a little behind the times on the Final Fantasy games at the time. But it was still worth the playthrough, and I still thoroughly enjoyed it. I struggled with the weapons for Emerald and Ruby weapon in Final Fantasy VII, I will admit. But I was young. I was probably, freshman year of high school when I started to try to play that game for the first time, never having played something like that before. And it would end up being that Chrono Trigger would be the Squaresoft game that I really fell in love with. They did a remastered for the PlayStation, and they comboed it with, I want to say Final Fantasy IV. And I had managed to get that from a secondhand store. And I was thoroughly enjoying it. Gotta eat some food. And once again, just like with Majora's Mask, you add in that little bit of dynamic of the time travel. As a kid, I was into the Back to the Future series, and like time travel was a big deal. It was something that we were all like, could it be possible one day? And so Chrono Trigger ended up being a big hit for me. I like the fact that we also had the dynamic of the villain who, at first glance, yeah, he was a villain. Yes, he was a bad guy. Yes, he went about his thing wrong. But it turned out that he was motivated not to be evil, but because he knew what was coming. And Magnus was a great kind of plot twist to the whole Chrono Trigger game, and one that would end up being, I feel like, duplicated in Knights of the Old Republic with Revan. I mean, what is the the big plot twist of Knights of the Old Republic, with it being such an old game. I apologize to any of the viewers who haven't had a chance to play it yet, but let's it's been around for long enough. I think we can say spoilers here and keep moving forward, and I apologize. But at this point, you kind of got to be living under a rock or not know the game at all to not know that your main character was Revan. And Revan was, at the very beginning, a bad guy. And the Jedi were able to capture him and reprogram his brain to turn him into your character. And you had your own personality. You weren't the Revan you were before. And there's thoughts that resurface in your dreams from Revan's memories, and you kind of get them as cutscenes. And one of the factors is you could always choose to make it Revan's redemption arc. Once you find out that your character is Revan, you can either be like, oh yeah, I'm going to embrace this, and I'm going to go full-on bad guy. I'm the Sith Lord, bow down to me. Or you can go like, that was me, but I'm me now, and this me wants to stop Malik and save the Republic. But it's kind of interesting if you follow into the extra lore. Revan's motivation for coming back and trying to start a war with the Republic was to make the Republic stronger because of the Sith Empire that he found in his travels. And there's something to that. The idea that, you went off with the intentions of being a hero and wanting to make everybody better and stronger and help the galaxy, only to turn up as the villain, as a means of trying to help the galaxy. Very much Magnus's redemption arc in Chrono Trigger, if you ask me. And that's okay. I think we've hit a point when it comes to games like that. Plot twists become harder and harder. It's I want to say a South Park episode quote. Simpsons did it. You run into, well, yeah, that was done by this game, and you start running the risk of, oh, there's no original ideas. Now there's new twists every day, and I wouldn't say that there aren't any new ideas. I think there's new take on old ideas more often than not, though, or just slightly different, similar ideas. And that's what you kind of get with that Revan redemption arc versus Magus redemption arc, where Magus realizes, oh, okay, I really can't do this alone. These guys have beaten me. I've tried to beat Lavos by myself. I can't do it. What if, rather than fighting these guys, I help them and we work together and we take out this enemy that threatened all of existence and my family from ages. And because, like, Lavos is an infestation of the planet. I mean, you take a look at Lavos. What is Lavos? So it's very similar to what was Genova in Final Fantasy VII. But yeah, those were the games that I got into in high school. Not so much the cozy games, but more the RPGs. And I would still play things like A Wonderful Life on GameCube for the Harvest Moon once it came out. And I put so many hours into that game. Like, for as many hours as I put in that game, you'd think that by the time the remake came around for Switch and the remaster that just came out like a couple of years ago, that I would have known exactly how to get my kid raised up and do and all the interactions, but like I still hadn't figured out beyond the basic farming stuff how to really influence my child until it was too late. Again, there wasn't that much content, and I didn't look for content for the remake until after I'd already started, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I have to show my child all these items in order to influence them and convince them to be farmers or be an artist or whatever the various career paths that they would choose. So, like, I need to do another playthrough of It's a Wonderful Life so I can actually enjoy the mechanic of influencing and maybe making the next generation farmer in the game. My kid ended up being kind of a loner, which, I mean, I can relate to, being an only child and being a little on the spectrum and not quite as motivated as others for certain social interactions. But I mean, at the end of the day, that gave me time to play video games, and that's where that passion has brought me today. Most of my friends still play video games. Now I play video games with my kids on occasion. Like, that is, if they're playing like a multiplayer game that they want. Now, I admit I don't play Minecraft, and that is a game that both of my kids are into, and they enjoy playing together. For me, the pixel style is a little bit much. I did get into the Dragon Quest Builders, which is very similar to the Pokopia and Minecraft. It's very similar vibe. Again, I believe Dragon Quest, some of the team that brought us Dragon Quest Builders 2 helped with the development of Pokopia, if I remember my facts correctly on that. And you can kind of see that influence in the game. Again, the idea that there is no original thought, well, yeah, that may be true in some respects. Everything's got its new twist, and that's okay. You gotta find that new twist that makes it a little bit different, or just makes it more you. Like, I enjoy Dragon Quest series. I got into the Dragon Quest Warrior, or back in the Game Boy Color days, Dragon Warrior Monsters for Game Boy Color, which at the time it came out, it was right around when Pokemon Gold and Silver come out, right before they came out. And in Dragon Quest Builders, or Dragon Warrior Monsters, they introduced breeding, and depending on which monster types you had, so like if you had a dragon type monster and you bred it with a material type monster, you could end up with like a metal dragon for your monster. So just because the parents were one type of monster, the child could be something completely different, which added a dynamic to breeding that when I finally got a hold of Gold and Silver, I'll admit, there was a bit of time where I actually preferred Dragon Warrior Monsters over Pokemon. Which is scary for me to say, considering that Gold and Silver, or what would be Heart Gold and Soul Silver eventually, or taken over by that, would be my favorite Pokemon game. You had the introduction of Espeon and Umbreon, two of my all-time favorites. I mean, they're favorites enough of mine. I got tattoos of them on me. But, like, Dragon Warrior Monsters, it had randomly generated dungeons that you would crawl through, collect items, and you had 3 monsters in your team, and you would send them all out into battle at once. And there was 2 forms of combat. You had one form of combat where you could specifically order them to use specific attacks, or you could tell them to just simply attack, and they would just do like a random physical damage attack against the opponent. And so, like, if it's a monster that didn't have a very high physical attack stat, you wouldn't do much in the way of damage with the regular attack. But if you use one of the special abilities, like a electric ability or something like that, or an ice ability, or dragon, it was the equivalent of like Pokemon moves almost, it might do more, and it was considered a special attack, and it uses basically magic to do those points, to use those attacks. And that was something that Pokemon, I thought, was lacking, that multi-battle format. And we would end up getting that with double battles and rotation battles and triple battles come the DS era of Pokemon. And like I said, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, or the remakes of Gold and Silver for the DS era probably are my all-time favorite Pokemon games. You get the best of Gen 1 and the best of... And then you get all the Gen 2 Mon. You get the introduction of breeding mechanics. And I know Pokemon's breeding mechanics can seem convoluted at times. But, like, there are worse things. Ooh, piece of candy. Sorry, I got distracted by that. I'm to the point now when usually when I see these, it ends up being that rare Pokemetal. And I didn't notice it before the stream. I'm a regular Pokemetal. That's okay, it's still useful. Alrighty. I know I'm not probably going to have enough mushrooms for all of this. But we can still work on getting it set up. But yeah, so you had the console wars with Xbox, PlayStation 2, and GameCube. One of the things that it was like, it almost felt like a golden age of gaming at the time. We had so many options. For those who wanted the JRPGs, you went with the PlayStation 2, because that's where all the Final Fantasy titles were dropping. You wanted to have your more European-style RPGs. You went with Xbox, because that's where you had Fable, you had Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind dropping on there. And those games, I ended up playing the Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance games on both PS2 and Xbox. I think I had one of them for PlayStation 2, and the other one ended up being given to me for, the sequel being given to me for Xbox. Naturally, as a kid with a summer job, and parents who insisted that I didn't spend my money on food and couldn't drive, so I didn't have money to spend on a car, I spent it on consoles. I had my GameCube and my PS2, and I got my Xbox, and I would end up graduating to the Xbox 360 as my next console, which broke the trend of me being a largely Nintendo household. And I am deleting the wrong section. That's the one we don't need to delete. Oh well, we'll fix it. Not a big deal. Let's see. I'm gonna... Yeah. Smashed up this way. So yeah, I ended up getting a 360 long before I got a Wii or a PlayStation 3. In fact, the PlayStation 3 ended up being the last console that I would get from that next generation. The Wii was something I would pick up secondhand, and as a result, despite my love of Zelda and having picked up Twilight Princess, I was so busy by the time I picked it up with work and just trying to survive life that I didn't get to play Twilight Princess. And then Skyward Sword came out, and it needed the special upgraded Wii remotes, and bills were a thing. And then, next thing I know, I'm having kids. So, like, consoles got kind of shifted back, and I wasn't getting much in the way of games anymore. Had that adult money, but that adult responsibility. Well, for a while there, I had that adult money and no responsibility, which was great for, like, a single guy playing video games, but, like, as an adult living outside of my parents' house, getting married and having kids, it became hard to justify getting the next console when it came out while I was still enjoying other things. Now, I would keep up with the handhelds. I would get the DS, and I would get the 3DS. I would get the 3DS XL. I have the, I don't think I have it nearby, but I have the Anniversary Edition new 3DS from Pokemon with the interchangeable Blastoise and Charizard plates for red and blue. Oh, no. We do want to delete that area. I was right. And that's what I get for second guessing myself. Okay. Um, and then I would end up picking up the Pikachu edition of the new 2DS XL when it came out. And I liked having the bigger handheld with the newer features that the new 3DS brought. And of course, the new 2DS XL duplicated those features without the cost of the 3D peripheral, which was just. I get why they did it. I understand it. I feel like they still didn't quite learn the lesson of the Virtual Boy, and that 3D graphics just sometimes isn't everything it's cracked out to be in that form. And as a result, like you had X and Y, there were so many assets for the 3D elements that got dropped in development because they were just having trouble having the room to accommodate that feature in addition to everything else they wanted to include in the game. Game Freak is notorious for messy coding and whatnot. I mean, the original games wouldn't have made it out of the shed, so to speak, if it hadn't been for other game developers who were friends of the staff coming in and going, hey, man, your code's a little clunky. You mind if I take a look at it and see if I can trim it up? I think I can do something here to free up some space for you to make this work. I mean, the developer of Kirby helping you with your coding on his off time to make sure that you're able to bring your product to market. And I mean, like, at the same time, that's got to be a bit encouraging just because, like, he saw the project and he's like, this is a project worth investing my time in, even though I'm not going to get a whole bunch of credit for it, even though it's not something that's a main project of his, it's a friend's project. He saw the value in what Pokemon could be, and now we have Pokemon as one of the, I apologize, not one of the world's largest IPs. Between the anime, cards, toys, video games, like Pokemon is everywhere. Now we've got Pokemon Lego, which I mean we had Pokemon Mega Bloks before, but Lego was a huge franchise. And I mean, Lego used to compete with Nintendo. In fact, there was a lawsuit between Lego and Nintendo because Nintendo did their version of a building block, and now here we are with Lego and Nintendo cooperating with each other on both well, I say both, on several different IPs between Animal Crossing and Legend of Zelda and Pokemon and Mario. They finally, it's like they put aside their differences and decided to work together, finally. But at one point they were having court cases against each other. And I think it's hilarious because Lego would end up winning that one, if I recall. And Nintendo is, of course, notorious for its lawyers. But, I mean, when you're dealing with corporate IP and with Nintendo, half the brand is their first-party IPs. Their Zeldas, their Kirbys, their Smash Brothers, the Pokemons, the Metroids. Like, you buy a Nintendo system, you buy it because you want those Nintendo first-party titles. The third-party titles are a wonderful addition, especially for those who cannot afford multiple consoles. I have been fortunate enough that I got the Nintendo Switch. I didn't know I was going to get a Nintendo Switch when I got my Nintendo Switch. Taxes hadn't come in yet, and I missed the pre-order date because I wasn't going to pre-order something if I wasn't sure I'd have the money for it. And so I missed out on pre-orders. And then taxes came in, and then GameStop did this promo where, hey, if you go and get on the waiting list, there's going to be a second wave of consoles that we're able to ship out beyond the edition, and every store's getting at least one more console than what was already been reserved. So you go on this particular day, put your name in the pot for letting people know when the Switch would become available again, and you could get a Nintendo Switch pre-order chance. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. So I did that, and literally on my way home, right before the store closed, the manager calls me up. He's like, man, I just pulled your name from the pot. You were the random number. You get the pre-order. I know you just left here a moment ago. I'm still open. You want to swing back here and finalize that? And I'm like, yes. And I immediately went right back there, and because I'd gotten taxes in, I had the money for it. Pre-orders were sold out. I, I really wanted the console, and I was able to get Breath of the Wild with it, and I had so much fun playing that first night. And that manager like cemented that I would go to that particular GameStop as long as he was there in that same process. And then with the Switch 2, that was a literally a couple days before it came out. I found out I was going to have the money for it and jumped on it. So I've got this Switch 2, and I was lucky enough to be able to get the pre-order before it sold out. And see, I don't think I have any more. Let's make some fluorine. So the fluorine I'm using here is the dark marble fluorine dyed white. And I'm just going to go ahead and make 200. I don't know that we're necessarily going to need that much for this build. Put it in my notes here, because I will, at the end of the build, have a total parts list for this build. So we're adding an additional 200 to the pool, and then I'll do the math and see how many is left over at the end. Now let's see if I can dye all of it. So if you like what I do on the museum and decide you want to duplicate it, or if you're curious on, oh wait, how did he use that item? You can see what I did with it at the end. That is my goal anyway. But yeah. That's gaming for me. I mean, it's a passion project. It's something that I grew up as just doing to pass the time, so I wouldn't be bored. I fell in love with the puzzles that were in the Zelda games. That's part of why I still play Zelda games. They're action adventure, even though I kind of now tend to keep this games like Stardew Valley and Shiny Hunting and Pokemon. I'm not a big competitive battler for Pokemon. I get how to do it. I understand the concepts. I can participate. It's not what I enjoy. I enjoy the thrill of shiny hunting. Now, admittedly, soft reset shiny hunting is kind of a pain in my rear, but I enjoy the Masuda method breeding for eggs in Gen Y, or well, Gen 6 for Pokemon X and Y. I really got into doing that. And then as you hit Sword and Shield it before the DLC, that was pretty much the way to go for if you wanted to do shiny hunting, was using the Masuda method. I remember in the early days of me doing that, like, the shiny odds were real. Like, they seemed real. And it wasn't as easy to get, or it didn't feel like once you got that shiny, there was a lot of options on what you could do about it. Because, like, you didn't have the ability to EV train, or not EV train, IV train with hyper training and stuff like that. You didn't have the ability to swap out its nature once it's already put in place necessarily for a while there. If you had a shiny with a largely physical attacker and you rolled that 1 on the physical attack for your shiny, it was unusable. No amount of EV investment was going to change that. You were just out of luck. For me, it was I was breeding for a hidden ability Froakie, so I could get the Protean Greninja shiny, because everybody loved shiny Greninja at the time, and I was among those as well. So I've got all these others sunk into the floor. Kind of debating on whether or not I want to keep this area sunken in as well, for the effect that I'm wanting to do, or if I'm going to actually end up raising this one above the floor. So I'm going to hold off on that area. I know these I'm going to keep like that. Alrighty. So the next part of the build that I'd like to work on is I want to give this thing a nice little border here. I'm going to use this white rock for now. And we're going to give it a border. And this is what I'm going to start placing my exterior wall on. So my goal here, this white rock I think will look nice as being turned into like an extended outdoor entryway into the museum. It gives us something that kind of serves as that foundation that the building was built on. So like you've seen that we've got our normal flooring going forward there. Around that is where I'm wanting to put the exterior, and I'm wanting columns and kind of like that grand approach. We're probably going to take the ground down a couple of levels here in front of the museum, so that way we get nice stairs going up to it. Ooh. We need to fix this quick. Let's see. I'm going to put that there. And then this can go here. There we go. That looks a little cleaner for now. We may expand that a little bit. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that lake. One of the things that I've discovered while playing this game is the game definitely has its hard limits on things that you can do in each zone. There's a limit to the number of electrical items, there's a limit to the number of generators, there's a limit to the number of utility poles or electrical boxes that bring the power to your electrical items. There's a limit on the number of trees, though from what I've seen, it may be that the limit on the number of trees is not as harsh as some of the other limits are. I think with the trees, it's more of there's a limit on how many fruiting trees you can have at one time in the zone. Not that I haven't maxed out my number of trees yet, so bear with me here. I may end up maxing out the number of trees somewhere and discover, oh wait, no, it's not that you put so many trees out with that produce berries, they stop producing berries for most of them. It's literally, you can only have 200 trees. I haven't found that limit yet, but I have seen that from other builders that they've used a bunch of trees in a build, and as a result of the limit on fruiting trees, only a portion of their trees are actually producing fruit. And it made their attempt to turn it into their build into an auto farm a little bit harder of an attempt. And I could do auto farms, and you'll see as I kind of move throughout my Pokemon world, I don't have a lot of those auto farm kind of functions built into my game. I'm not looking to min-max. I'm looking for aesthetic. I'm looking for what could possibly be a Pokemon's view of how a human world should be. So that way the humans that are coming back in the storyline have something to come back to. And that may be a silly view to have as a gamer, but just kind of like with KOTOR. Yeah, I did a playthrough where I was Sith. It was hard. I'm not gonna lie. Being that heartless, like, it was hard to remember, oh yeah, I'm not the nice guy here. I am the villain in this story. I am going to be selfish, power, 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 and yeah, that's not me, normally. I am very much let's have a chill time, and everybody, let's be respectful, and everyone is equal. We lift each other up, not put each other down. That's very much who I am. I am not the kind of person who puts others down. For one, there's enough wrong in this world. Why do I need to add to it? But yeah, evil playthroughs are difficult for me. Now, playthroughs as a good character who just happens to use Force Lightning as crowd control. Charisma. Charisma decreases the force point penalty for using cross alignment skills. Which, by the way, in case you all didn't know, in the time of Dungeons and Dragons 3.0, the D20 system was very much a standard for several other tabletop RPGs, including the original Star Wars tabletop RPG. For example, the original damage from that for the lightsaber was 2d8, and it had a 19 to 20 critical times 3, and ignores hardness, and went off of your opponent's touch AC. It was absolutely broken, especially if you throw it into a traditional fantasy RPG as, oh, I don't know, maybe a trickster god opened a portal to another dimension and out of nowhere fell a Jedi or a Sith into this fantasy world. And you kind of can finagle it a little bit so that way the magic of the world kind of helps compensate for the fact that they're going against a force wielder with a lightsaber. The whole psionic mind blade exists. I mean, that is a ability within our system of D&D. Now let's see here. I do have blocks for these walls. So for the exterior wall, I'm wanting to use a stone tile. So that will be a majority of what I'm putting up, and we've got some pre-made columns here and some arch bridges, and then for the interior, I'm wanting to do the marble here. So my thought process on this is, I've got my initial border here for putting in the walls. I'm thinking, in order for the build to look right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a double border with this white rock. So that way we have one border that will be our exterior wall, and one that will be the interior. So that way we've got two different textures going on. We don't really need to go more that way for now. Plus, if I do it too deep on the wall, there's a little effect for the windows that I'll be able to use that I really liked when I was testing it out and pre-planning. I'm checking one moment here. And if I don't like the effect of the white stone at the end of the build, we'll just swap this out. I am not committed to it being the final exterior block that we see on this building. Kind of like with the original museum, I used the stylish stone wall as kind of like that base borderline around the museum for the foundation. But games like Fable, where you also have the alignment kind of factor going on, I'd struggle to do the evil side of that, and there were special bonuses in storyline content that you could see that you wouldn't get and otherwise, and that was a little sad for me, so I ended up doing it. Again, not something I enjoy as much, but I'm not too upset. I mean, it's a game at the end of the day, but when I go back for repeated playthroughs, it was always definitely not going to do the evil. I stuck with good and tried to if it's something that was really fun to use that was normally available to evil characters that you could kind of use as a good guy and get away with, I would sometimes do stuff like that. But for the most part, it was not something that I was looking at and going, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do it this way," and we're going to be evil on this playthrough. No, it was definitely I'm going for a nice cozy playthrough of this game, and I'm going to be everybody's favorite character. Everybody in the kind of like how Galadriel was in Lord of the Rings. I will be a great and terrible queen, and all shall love me, and all shall fear me. That's kind of how I was as a Fable character. I was going in there and I was going to take over the economy. I was going to be everybody's favorite landlord and giving out the cheap rent. And then I remembered, oh yeah, all landlords are scum. And that's kind of how the character treated you sometimes when you were the landlord in that game. They're like, oh, look, it's the landlord. Wonder what he's going to do to me today. Alrighty, so this will be our outer wall. Like I said, I want to go too deep on the border, so we're going to make sure to leave that interior border here. I'm just going to go ahead and we're just going to make this initial border here, and then we'll go back in and we'll add doors and windows and whatnot. I'm just getting the process started here. Or, you know, we'll have a museum. So one of the things that I always do in the month of May is I play through Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic or Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. And today we're almost to that 1 week of streaming mark where I've done this for a full week. We started last Friday and tomorrow will be the 1 week anniversary of my first stream. And obviously that's not that big of a milestone for many people in the grand scheme of things, but one of the things I was thinking is going into May, I want to try to find another time slot that I could do some streaming, and I'm thinking I might do a stream where I play through the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which is based off of the classic Star Wars D20 system, complete with programmed die rolls using a D20 to determine whether or not your character hits with your attack. It's straight up Star Wars D&D in a video game, and that's what I loved about the original KOTOR, is it did keep that tabletop look kind of feel and character build style. And I know they're working on the remake, and that's being handled, I want to say, by Saber Interactive now. I know it started off in the hands of, Aspire. And then Aspire got bought up, and Sable split from the parent company, and they basically got KOTOR in the divorce because they were the ones willing to put in the time and effort to keep that project rolling after Disney executives killed the original remake of KOTOR that Aspire had put together based off of its initial, which supposedly, from the things that I have seen and heard, that initial Aspire build was basically done. And it just needed some fine tuning. And if Disney sees an almost done product that just needs fine tuning and says, scrap the whole project, we may have dodged. I hate to say it, as much as I want a KOTOR remake, and I want that KOTOR remake in a timely manner, we may have dodged a little bit of a letdown with that decision. Now, Aspire did do some decent ports of the old games. The Switch 2 version or the KOTOR 2 was very glitchy when it came out, and because of the whole contract issues between them and Disney, we weren't able to, and the original creators of the uh, restored content mod that they promised as the DLC for KOTOR 2 for their Switch release. We never got to see that because of the issues where it's like, okay, you've got these individuals who made this restored content mod not for profit versus Disney, who owns the property, but the copyright issues just became so convoluted, and that's kind of what killed the DLC. Am I disappointed? Absolutely. Do I get it? Yeah. Am I thrilled by it? No. I would have liked to have gotten that restored content mod available for console because I never did get the chance to play it for PC. Uh, for the KOTOR 2 Sith Lords, where there was so much content that was missing. Alrighty, so we need more stone tiling. Let's see, how much did I start with? Because I think if we started... we started with 1,000 stone tiling. So that's what got us to this. Interesting. Okay. What's another 1,000 stone? So I can't make them in batches of 1,000. But I can make it in batches of 990. So we'll go with 990. We'll stick with that. That means when I come over here, that's what I'm going to need to have for dyeing. Here's to hoping I have enough white dye on me. I think I may have some more somewhere, but I'm not positive. If I need to buy more white dye, I will. You know what? We're looking at roughly 8 minutes left of the stream. Rather than focus on dyeing this, I'll start to kind of work on a little bit of the interior wall for now, as we'll build that, and next time I come up here I'll have all this stone dyed and ready to go tomorrow, which we will be doing our normal time tomorrow. You know what, we are not doing the normal time that I have established so far as 11. I'm going to make that adjustment on the schedule after we get done here tonight, and I'm going to say tomorrow's stream is going to start at 10:30 p.m. and then we will go from there, and I will start doing all future late night streams starting at 10:30 p.m. And then I'll try to get posted, and I'll post on Instagram about when this daytime stream will be. I'm thinking maybe for the daytime stream, if people think I should do more Pokopia, I will do Pokopia. If people think I should do a Star Wars KOTOR playthrough, I did recently purchase for my computer Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, and I have finally got the restored content mod so that I can play it. I am a console gamer typically, so I would be using a controller for that. I do have an Xbox controller that I can use for that, though. Now my console library is a Switch 2 and a PS5. Not enough blocks of marble. We can fix that. We can fix that. And this is why I made my a little temporary crafting zone right here. That's excessive. I love it. Alrighty, so 990 marble and 990 stone tiling. It's being added to my build inventory. I know it's a It's brick. But we're getting there. So I think starting tomorrow, what we'll do is I'll finish off the interior wall for what we've got here, and then we will set up the doorways, and then I'm going to start building the exterior. Um, so this section of the build will be our fossil exhibits. I am fine tuning them. I do have one exhibit in mind already that I think we can build tomorrow's night stream, and that's going to be for Auroras. Um, I have a concept of what I want to do for Tyrantum, which I'm going to do here. And then we've got Shieldon here and Bastodon here, which I'm still working on what I want to do for those. And then right here in this area where I was debating on whether or not I wanted to raise it up instead of having it lowered, I'm wanting to do kind of a human environment for prehistoric humans in this section of the museum, in addition with these prehistoric fossils. So that is my thought process for that. For the entryway, we'll be using double iron doors here, and we'll get those kind of put in here. I'm going to put them obviously keyed to the outside with the marble archway on the inside. We'll probably frame the door. We'll probably delete some of the wall and put the pillars in there to help frame the door frame. We'll make it look nice. We'll make it look nice. Right now, I know it kind of looks like, oh, all this white marble flooring and really boring. And I have some ideas to help spice it up a little bit. I'm thinking we could put some carpet down. I like the extravagant carpet where it gets that nice little gold border on there. So I got ideas. We're still working on this. This is going to take us a little bit of time, especially since I'm only building on stream. But I think tomorrow night stream, without me having to worry about trying to order Lego in time for my pre-order bonus, I think tomorrow night stream we can make a good dent in getting the initial building set up on the exterior. So thank you for joining me tonight here doing Pokopia. I appreciate everyone showing up, and I hope you enjoyed watching the build so far. Like I said, we'll continue on it tomorrow, and here soon I'll get that streaming schedule updated for that 10:30 start time tomorrow. And then we'll start doing 10:30 to 11:30 streams, probably 10:30 to midnight, but I'm going to say 10:30 to 11:30 at least for every night that we do a stream on the 10:30 stream, depending on how I'm doing and how the build's going. If I hit the idea blockage, we'll kind of take a break and ease off a little bit for that evening and only keep it at an hour. But I'd like to be able to get this realistically done in another couple of streams, at least for what I have envisioned thus far for this section of the building. Because right now we've got the building with the entry area and both of the wings kind of set up, but there is the whole backside of the building that I had plans for that we just haven't made it to yet, that I'm wanting to set up as a kind of greenhouse cafe with that farm to table kind of concept like Garden Grill has at Epcot and Disney World. I always thought that was the coolest thing, that they grew their own food on the property. But thank you everyone for joining me. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you again on the stream tomorrow night at 10:30 EST or Eastern Standard Time. Sorry. Thank you for being here.